And when you're here, you're family. This is the Olive Garden podcast.
Oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God, I fucked up so hard. Everything's broken. I've been back for 8 seconds. And
I'm not going to say anything because I can hear myself on Murph's. Oh, there's a lot of feedback, Murph.
I don't know what happened. I just opened it.
We're doing good.
What the hell is going on?
This is a primarily D&D podcast. My name is John. That's Murph. I have to talk.
And Jake swears at the gods.
This is how I have to talk right now because if I talk any higher.
There should be no more feedback.
Is there? Oh. Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Hello and welcome. Take two, Electric Boogaloo. This is what's in the dungeon podcast.
That's us.
I had to look at the Discord
What's our name?
to see what the name was because I was thrown off so much. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee.
Oh, it was bad. It was so bad. That was the worst kind of worst kind.
I mean, it was fine. It's par for the course at this point. Yeah, we've had worse. My name is John. That's Murph.
Spanky.
We are two very popular Twitch personalities. So popular that I've actually not streamed for like a consecutive week of months. Sorry, a month of weeks. So like 4 weeks. That's a bad way of saying 4 weeks. Yeah. It's rough. Murph is a regular streamer. If you want to check him out, his stream is called it's Twitch's Mr. Up Here. That's right. I had to look. I had to look here. I was like, it's in the Discord.
Normally I'm wearing my hat, but no.
I have to get my spectacles out. Just like, okay, yeah, that says that. We are here to answer questions about primarily Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop role-playing game of the century. But also other questions in regards to anything really role-playing-esque. It's a fun time, and we're sorry we missed last week. Last week was rough on everyone. Murph is now gainfully employed, which is excellent.
What a job. So
Troy is
do things.
Troy is now gainfully employed. I'm sorry, he's yelling. Whatever. And this is so professional.
Fuck professionalism. That's not how you get anywhere in life. We've been to enough corporate trainings to know that's true. Not how anyone does anything.
That's true. Periodically, I will bend down to take a sip of coffee, and Murph will bend down to take a bite of a sandwich. That's where we're at right now. Yeah, last week was pretty busy for everyone, and we just couldn't find a good time. And like the one day we did have, I was like, I gotta work tonight. So it was rough. If it's any consolation, I also completely forgot I had D&D this week and stood them up for like 20 minutes as I raced home from the gym to D&D, which is something I always complain to them about. But I actually did it this time, so it was my fault.
And in your defense, we were going to do it last night.
Yes.
But I lost power.
And I got obscenely drunk. I got so drunk, Murph. I had 2 10% beers, and then I had like 3 gin and tonics, and I think it was 3. I remember 2. I think there was a third after that.
You're speaking my language. This is some of my favorite mixed drinks.
Yeah, I also put cranberry juice in the first one, and then I was like, this is not very good. Also, Troy drinks the cranberry juice, and he got upset at me.
I got upset at you when I was there last time about that.
I know, even though I'm the one who bought the cranberry juice. But...
He likes what he likes, man.
It's okay. I like that the focus is on me, and so when he turns around, it's only like a blurred face.
There's a guy back there.
There's a person. So we have today a question, and then I also have a topic today because there's been an announcement, Murph, that has really tickled my fancy, that has really gotten me really excited. But first, we're going to tackle the question of the week from last week. Last week. It's last week.
Yeah, sure.
We could have played it like we actually did an episode last week, and we just lost the VOD again because that has happened.
We're going to part 5, number 7.
Number 7.
At this point, we're doing it for ourselves.
It's like when you watch or listen to a long-running podcast, and the episode numbers don't line up with the title numbers. Like I'm listening to an episode or a podcast right now that has like the iTunes number is 582 that I'm at, but the podcast episode number is at 579. So there's like somewhere along the way they added or reduced an episode without me realizing it, and so the numbers are slightly staggered now.
They released some bonus episodes that weren't actual episodes, and they start throwing that in there.
Yeah, basically.
It's a great mug you got there.
Yes, it was. It was on a trip we took to Baltimore, where we had some fun. It was good.
I love that poem.
It was a good one. Anyway, so the question of the week from a month ago. What is the hardest type of story to try and play as a campaign in your sessions? So I broke this down into like genres because I wasn't sure what you meant by type of story. I'm thinking you meant genres, kind of like action adventure.
Like what sort of narrative is the hardest to kind of make a...
Yeah, and I think just for me personally, like you've got the basic story, which is action adventure. Like that's like 9 times out of 10 your D&D story. Then you can have like thriller / horror type things. Like Curse of Strahd is a bit like that. The whole Guide to Ravenloft introduces like all these horror themes. Like they've got sanity, they've got stress, they've got curses, they've got they line out all the different monsters that go with different types of horror because they've got it all broken down really well. Then you have like just kind of travel. Like some campaigns I've seen where they just want to go places and experience things, and it's like how you have slice of life animes. That's kind of like those types of campaign. It's like
there's no quest. It's just we
just want to we want to fill out a block of time by experiencing things, and it's generally not combat.
I'm guessing a campaign like that could be kind of like a one-off just for using characters. Like maybe a couple of people are missing a session and you're like, well, you guys go to town and...
Yeah. On another note, have you ever seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I've caught a few episodes.
Okay. I got a text from a random 724 number and it says, "Hello, Mr. Kim. I have not seen you for a long time. How are you?" I don't know. That's a thing someone texted me. Mr. Kim there's an episode or two I think he/she is in because they can't really determine if they're a man or a woman. They own a bar, like a Korean bar, and they have like a microbrew, and they only know him or her as Mr. Kim, and they're a pretty funny character. But as soon as I saw Mr. Kim, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I don't know who that is. But yeah, so then the last genre that I could think of that I really probably have the hardest trouble with is mystery or intrigue. That generally pairs with something like generally you never have just a straight mystery campaign. You have like, all right, this is a horror campaign and I'm going to throw some mystery in there to spice it up. Or this is a questing campaign, A to B to C to D all the way down, and we're going to add some mystery in there. And that generally is how it's run. So straight up and down mystery campaigns are difficult because it requires the players to be very attentive. And for better or worse, most of the times D&D is the afterthought. Like it's much, okay, what day of the week can we all get together? Okay, it's everyone's day after work. Okay, this time and you know, we'll do 2 hours, and it's like in order to really have a good mystery, you need full attention. You need them to be paying attention to the clues you're dropping, the hints you're leaving behind. They need to be like taking notes. They need to be aware of their surroundings, and it's difficult to do that when you have an hour and a half after working a 9-hour day, and you all do different things, and you all have different stress levels, and you all have different levels of commitment and engagement. So there's always like one person who's super attentive, and it's usually the person who's like either doesn't have a job or works part-time or is like a student, because they generally have a little bit more time on their hands and a little bit more energy. Not that going to school is not the same as working. They both require a lot of...
But I mean, it's the difference of like, if you have a mental job over a physical job, right? Like someone who has a physical job all day would probably have a better chance of wanting to do something like D&D afterwards, because you haven't mentally worked out. But people who work in like a corporate environment all day probably want to go home and like exercise and sleep.
Yeah, they don't want to be around people, and so that's the difficult pitch for a straight mystery campaign, or a gay mystery. You can have a gay mystery campaign, I guess. I don't see anything wrong with that. But
because when you say mystery campaign, I'm just thinking like film noir.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
actual like
Ooh, I opened a menu and the Discord left. Ah!
thing.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
are
So
on TV, Troy. You are on TV.
he is, yes. Well, not really TV. No one. No.
He's on TV. I mean, we got 2 people watching this.
That's true, but I think one is Troy. Yes, one is
Hey,
Troy.
that's still something.
We're doing great.
Look, man, it's not for them; it's for us.
True. This is ill-advised.
I'm doing it. I feel you.
Hold on.
I also feel like one genre, and maybe I'm just jumping the gun here and you haven't talked about it. I feel like, and this kind of relates to a topic that I know for a fact
that
we
hurts.
don't want to cover, but we're gonna have to at some point, which is
I was gonna say romance.
Romance
I hate
campaign.
you. I hate you. I hate you so much, Murph.
I don't even know how that would work because like there's nothing. Okay, this is gonna sound bad.
Dating sim,
but I
the
feel like-
tabletop role-playing game.
I feel like there's nothing sadder than like 4 dudes sitting around a table and one guy's having a role play every woman.
That's
they-
extremely sexist, Murph. A lot of women play D&D, okay?
No, you're right. You're right.
I don't know
Most
any of
those
them.
Typically avoid romance campaigns to not make that person uncomfortable.
True. It's like the I can't speak to this mainly because I'm not a woman, but a lot of the popular media portrays girl gamers in a certain light that kind of makes them shy away from revealing their gender, because then the instant everyone knows what their gender is, it becomes like oh my god, oh, you're a girl gamer, or oh, you play D&D. It's like it becomes a sticking
Isn't it
point.
weird that they're like in the mass population of, and this could be either tabletop or online games or whatever it is, you've got this V of types of reactions. There's and again, the V could have like some small people groups in the center, but like the majority are, oh, you're a gamer girl, name every game.
Yeah.
Or oh my god, gamer girl, I gotta
They either get
Like, whoa,
horny or
calm down.
suspicious. That's generally
Yeah,
how it
or
works.
asshole.
And they like want them to prove that they're a gamer girl, not just doing it for attention. Because I think that, for better or worse, Twitch has happened, and it makes it so that the instant assumption is if you're a gamer, especially a girl, because of really bad sexist stereotypes, you're doing it for attention. And I think that whenever you have a female playing D&D and you have romance in there, generally it's tricky to play around because you want to make everyone feel comfortable and everything needs to be consensual. But also, it's all in like people's imagination, so it's weird. And I don't see a point of doing it. Like if my characters really want to have like romance with someone, I really try to make it an NPC. Because it's really fucking awkward to have romance between 2 PCs, player characters, that aren't already in a relationship, 1, and 2, that have to see each other once a week at this thing. So like if the relationship goes sour in D&D, so does that mean it goes sour in real life? Like, why did it do that? Like, blah 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 blah. Like, there's all
Art's
these.
imitating life over here.
It creates a level of complication that 4 to 6 people playing a paper video game just don't really want to deal with, and that I personally don't like dealing with because it generally detracts, and it generally, just my experience, the people who want to do romances are horny. And that's their way of getting some type of attractive, not attractive, but some type
like
of
sexting
attraction.
face to
Yeah,
face.
yeah, and it's like sexting through a third party face to face, because
Yeah,
you're not
it's
saying
sexting, but
you're not
forcing
saying all
your
these
parents to
lewd,
watch.
dirty things. Your character's saying it because that's what they would say, because they're a tabaxi rogue,
It's
and
a
they would say
shitty
that.
escapism excuse to be horny on people against their will.
Like in my experience, but there's been really good campaigns where they have like really good romance, and it's like one of the ones I listened to, they didn't have the romance, but it was like his wife was killed, and they did like a bunch of like past scenes with her, and like the romance that developed between the player character and the non-player character that the DM was playing was really beautiful. Like, and it made her death and his like redemption story all that more palpable because he had this tether. So there are times when like romance and stuff like really goes well into the story, because that's what you're doing. You're creating a
But
story.
it's a narrative
Yeah.
piece. It's part of the overarching story. It's not
it makes
horny
sense.
for the sake of horny. It's
Yeah.
if this occurred, it's because the story
Yeah.
demands that it do. Here's the other thing, and this is because you have DM'd, so you might get it. Let me start a question and then ask a question that based on that. Okay, so In the campaigns that you've run since you've started DMing,
Okay.
how often have you had a female player?
I say about 50% of the time.
Okay, so you have at least.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then the precursor question here is, and this is sort of related,
have
but
a-
sort of kind of.
We have a new follower.
Oh, dope.
Arrows Huskers, I think.
Oh yeah. It's
Someone you know, I'm
Brandon.
guessing.
It's our boy Brandon.
Oh, hello, boy
I
Brandon.
stream with him all the time. Sup? Welcome.
Why are you
Okay,
waving
so
up
my-
at him? Is he above you?
Well,
Is he in the ceiling,
thing is,
Mark?
I'm looking at. Hello.
Well, we just watched Candyman, the new one, and there's a scene.
God.
There's a scene where he's like in the mirror in the ceiling of the elevator, and he looks up, and he's like, ah. So that's kind of what I thought. I am standing over
No.
you. He says he's standing over you.
He's standing. He's always above me. He is taller than I am.
Either you're really short or he's really tall.
Well, he's physically above me because I am in a cave.
Oh, true. Yeah, Murph. We have not addressed this episode. Murph is now in a Nirnroot Skyrim cave.
Yeah,
he's
at
making
least
his
there's
way.
A portal of escape somewhere over here. I
Yeah.
turn the mirror off. But yeah, so okay, so you've dealt with. I say dealt with. You have had female players. In your
I've slogged through the trauma that is having a girl at the D&D table.
Well, yeah, and it's never the girl that's the problem. It's the
always the
guys around
guys.
the girl.
Well, thankfully, like
So-
the times that I've had a girl play, she's been there playing with her boyfriend or her significant other, which is nice because then it kind of keeps
The unspoken rules of don't fucking be weird.
yeah, don't
and
be
play
weirder
something.
around this girl because she's one taken and two you'll get beat up. Not that anyone in my campaigns would have done that. It's just it makes it less of a reason to try and do something ridiculous.
It puts the invisible cock block shield up, which is exactly what every campaign needs. But so my question here is like when you have a female player, or like what? How do you do a female NPC as a man without making them seem two-dimensional and very plot divisive? Like, how do you write a good female NPC that doesn't just like if there was a female player, they'd be like, oh, why, what is she? Why is she just a bimbo that just kind of walks around like? Because obviously, like people who care about their campaigns make sure that their player or their NPCs
Yeah.
feel like they could have been a player character, and it's like I see a lot, especially in like the like clips. You'll see them a lot on like TikTok and stuff where people are like addressing it. It's just like there's a lot of times where you, as a guy, or even the reverse, a woman writing a man, because we are not those people, we write them as we perceive them or as we want them to be, and it's like how do you address that?
So something
Especially when you have to a female
Yeah.
character.
Well,
in the game.
specifically something I do when I create an arc in a campaign, I lay out all the important NPCs, and I give them stories, and I give them backgrounds, and I give them reasons for doing what they do. You know, the classic ideals, bonds, traits, and flaws that D&D has, and it's interesting because I decided a couple campaigns ago I don't assign gender to them. Like I will write their story out and I'll give them character traits and I'll give them like a race and a class, but I then just kind of randomly give them a gender because I don't write their stories based around their gender per se. Like depending on the setting, like if I write a human noble who's been cast out of their ancestral home and they're on a quest to find their birth parents because they were adopted, but out of like wedlock and all this other shit, I would say, okay, now that I've written the story, flip a coin, male or female. Okay, female. In this society, females actually have like powers of privilege over males because it's a matriarchy. So I don't write the character with a gender at first. I write the character and then I say kind of randomly, are they male or female? Because I don't like, one, I feel like it makes it easier for me to say, I didn't write this based on my own personal experience. I just wrote this and then I gave them a gender. And based on the society that I created in that time period or that world or that setting, maybe women or men are interacted with differently, so that it's less on me and my personal experiences and more on how the world I've set up works and how the NPCs would, and like even with some of them, I don't even give them a gender. I let the characters kind of just assume.
So you just put like you just call them barkeep,
Yeah,
and then how
yeah.
they act towards.
I will describe them
See-
physically, and I will describe them like if they get like insight checks and stuff, I'll give them like emotions. But some of them I don't give them a gender because I don't necessarily see that as an important thing to do all the time, especially because like then it becomes a sticking point for a lot of people, because it like you said, if I have a female player, I feel awkward writing purely females in it, because I'm like, oh god, I'm not a female, I don't know what the issues are, I don't know how to do things. But I mean, it would be the same as if I wrote, like, I mean, I don't discuss sexual orientation with my characters. Like I don't assign them a, you know, gay, straight, bi, lesbian, non-conform. Like I don't give them that when I write them. It depends. Like if it comes up, I'll decide and I'll do that. But if they're straight, that doesn't mean that I can't write a good straight character just because I'm not that. Like it doesn't fill out a bubble that I can't check. I think I'm more focused on the story than the character traits. And because, I mean, in today's world, like what we live in currently, there are inequalities between races, genders, minorities, etc. And some of that might trickle over into the settings I've created, because humans are horrible, stupid people that generally will discriminate, stereotype, and create boundaries. And create boundaries that don't need to exist, because that's what we've done and that's what we'll continue to do, because we're horrible, nasty creatures. But maybe in the settings that I create, there's a little bit less of that because I can control it. So I really try not to focus on that so much, because it feels like we've already talked about, like the racial stereotypes that happen because of the races in D&D, and like they're getting away from the aggressive races or the evil races,
which is weird because that's assuming. That is assuming, and it might be true, but assuming that a specific fantasy race is specifically related to a real life counterpart, to me was an afterthought. This is an orc. Okay, well, just because they have dark skin does not mean we are initially registering them to be of a dark skin raced person. That's not what the interconnection was supposed to be. That happened after the fact. And certain racial stereotypes to those races came because of the after effect association. And it's so weird how that came up and became a thing. But again, it's the same thing with gender identity. And like the thought, and this is a really deep topic. We'll get off this because I know you have a subject tonight. But it's just like, I guess my question is just like, removing them uncomplicates things by removing sexual identity and gender identity and specific things like that. Keeping it to the baseline of what is D&D removes a lot. But I guess the biggest question is like, but do you lose something as a person by removing those identities from them? Yeah, so I don't like I said, I don't always like I try to give them as much depth as I can, and that includes a gender, but I don't make that the focal point, because like I feel like a lot of times people worry about creating anything and using something that isn't something they've experienced, and worrying that they won't be able to tell the story correctly or tell the narrative that they've experienced correctly. You know, when you write a book and you don't write about your experiences, like how do I know that people aren't going to call me out because I didn't grow up poor, but I wrote about a poor character? And I think that in that case, it has to be handled delicately, but it's not impossible. And I don't think just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean you can't write about it. I do think that it means you can't make assumptions about it. Like, because I'm not a woman, I don't want to make an assumption about what they go through. I don't want to deal with handling that, but I can still write a female character that has depth, mainly focused on the character themselves and not the gender. And that's what I do. I don't strip them of their gender or their sexual orientation or their right, because that also is part of the that's like the I don't see color narrative that came out years ago. It's like, well, no, you need to see it. You need to recognize that there is a big gap between that. But that was a big thing that was really annoying, and I don't think a lot of people, I think, took that and thought it was helpful, and then didn't realize, no, you need to recognize the differences. You need to recognize the differences, because the differences created horrible things. The differences that we created, you know, as we do, created these situations in which horrible things happened. And I think that when you strip people of their differences and you strip people of the experiences they have, it creates a very boring narrative, and it also
it whitewashes everything. It makes it all seem like everything's fine and everything's perfect when it's not. But I don't necessarily want to write a character, let's say a female character, whose whole identity is being female and the struggles of being female, and who does that, because I wouldn't feel okay with that.
To follow. Yeah, because that is the problem, and that's what you're seeing a lot of with like narrative storytelling in movies right now, is because they've gotten the principle of a character development backwards, because they're all looking for it. And this is not me trying to sound weird about it, but I think most people agree now that when they are writing it, when they are looking at a character, they're like, all right, we need diversity in the film. Okay, so we pick an ethnic background of some kind.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, are they man, woman, non-gender? What are they? And then instead of going, okay, here's a solid character with the infusions of their own culture in it that grounds them to reality, they go, here is this person, they are their color, they are their gender, and then everything else just kind of gets tacked on like a coat of paint. And it's like, why?
Yeah, but I think
how hard is it to?
I think that's more of a writing flaw than it is a flaw with the process, because like you can make great stories that focus like on people, like Rent, the very popular play, was established basically around someone's sexual orientation and the life that they lived because of that. And I think that was really good writing. I think a lot of times they rush it and they say, all right, we want to hop on the diversity train. Let's make a film about gay people, and let's get a bunch of let's get a bunch of
stereotype and
let's get a bunch of straight actors in here, and let's make them all do things that are stereotypically gay, and it'll be great. But I think that you can create story based on hardships that you've lived through, but I think it has to be done in a way that is correct, because and I don't know how else to describe it, because you know the cringe-worthy bits where they say, I hate this because I think it was good. I think it was well intentioned, but like the scene in Avengers, like the female power scene
where all the female heroes
and it was like
care about,
it was like it was I didn't mind it, but I could see people's issues with it, where it was like it seemed ham-fisted. It seemed like they just jammed it in to make a scene about female empowerment, which is a very real thing that we need to focus on. But I don't think the writing was done right.
But it's like so my dad always has this argument. My dad is not the most forward-thinking individual ever, but I kind of see where he's coming from. The whole Black Widow thing, right? Like, her as a character.
Yeah.
She's got a deep backstory. She's got a thing. She's got like a certain set of skills. She's got this long, drawn-out history with the team. But I am supposed to believe that on a team of superheroes where a guy can shoot lasers out of his fists, I got a guy that can bench press a building, I got a guy that can fly and shoot lightning, that a normal human woman with no augmentation, just some training, is keeping up on that. And the reason that she can do that is single-handedly because of the Weird Canary experiment, which is the mental training, and the fact that she's a woman. And that is the narrative that they push. Not the fact that she's good. They set her up like it's like Captain Marvel, right? Captain Marvel's her purpose.
I disagree with
supposed to be this badass, but instead of focusing on the fact that she's a badass, they go, but she's a woman, and it's like, but that,
I don't know. I don't think I agree with that on Black Widow, because they like the Black Widow movie, I think, did a good job of explaining why she was able to keep up. I mean, when you go through that much trauma and all that other stuff, but also, I mean, another thing that people also struggle to realize sometimes when they get into these deep thoughts about superhero movies, they're superhero movies. Like,
oh well, no, absolutely, but I mean, it's just
they can do whatever the fuck they want, and I don't mind it. Like I hardly ever go to a movie anymore and go, man, I didn't like that because of this. I go, okay, that was a cool movie. It had action, it had humor, maybe it had mystery or romance, whatever. It was a cool movie. I think that when you get into dissecting it on motive and questioning it on every kind of, especially with superhero movies, because everyone wants to go to the comics and say, well, it didn't do this and they didn't do that and they didn't explain it.
It was also written in the 50s by a group of dudes who had never talked to a woman.
Yeah, so it's like I just like the like the Black Widow movie got a lot of flack when it came out because everyone was like, it's rah, 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 rah. I liked it. I liked Captain
David
Marvel.
Harbour,
Yeah, I liked David Harbour in it. I liked all the Marvel movies. I've never seen a Marvel movie and gone, that was shit. I want my refund. Like it's a movie. It's an action movie. They
Thor
churn them
2.
out. They churn them out. I liked Thor 2. I really did.
I just
liked
think it was misleading because it was a Thor movie that had a cameo of Thor in it instead of a Thor movie that had Thor in it.
I've liked all the movies I've seen lately. The one movie I think I saw that I didn't care for was Mortal Engines. Was that it?
One based off the book.
Yeah, it came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the only reason I didn't like it was because they didn't follow up with anything. Like they didn't do a second one. And I was like, they set a bunch of stuff up in the first one. They had Hugo Weaving. They had all these great actors. And it was like, I was really expecting, like, because I like the story. I like the idea. I enjoy that
one just got
zany concept.
Because, like, the people who liked the book were so mad at the adaptation in the movie.
Get the fuck out of here. I'm so tired of people who do that. Like, I want to see a movie. Let me see another one. I don't give a shit that's not like the books.
Yeah,
if it was like the books.
Same thing with the Maze Runner movies. But the critics didn't care. But.
And everyone like review bombed The Hobbit too. And I was like, who the fuck? It's got Bendy Dick Cumbersnatch. It's got frickin' John Watson from Sherlock. It's got all these cool people. Who the fuck cares if it's not adhering to the book? Who the fuck cares if they made 3 movies out of it? It was cool. I liked it. The dwarfs were nice. They sang the song. That was cool. I know.
It's like they're already fucking review bombing the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon, and it's not even out yet.
Yeah, because the scale mail wasn't like it's not.
They didn't spend 2.5 years making chainmail with fucking
I know
in Cambodia or something.
Jesus. But back to the thing. I think that there is a good and proper way to create a story for NPCs based around their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their race. But you have to be careful not to, one, cause anything weird to happen because of it. Like, you don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable about it. 2, you have to make sure that it's not ham-fisted. Like, it's not just like thrown in there and doesn't make any sense. It needs to fit the story.
Make the characters serve a purpose.
But
don't just have them there for the sake of.
But you've created the story, so it should fit. Like, I mean, that's the whole point of being the DM or the character. And you also need to make sure that you don't assume outside of your experiences. Like if you create a woman character, don't assume anything about it if you're not a woman. Like ask questions. And that's the great thing is you can go and find a woman and be like, hey, does this make sense, woman? Like, maybe don't call her a woman. That seems a little bit misogynistic.
Good writing and bad writing is whoever is in charge of the storytelling managing their resources.
Yeah.
If they have good resources and they use them, then the story can feel, the character can feel authentic.
Yeah.
Talking to a group of women and going, in this situation, how would you react?
And that's perfectly
that consensus
fine.
And writing it, but being like, well, her husband was killed, but she'd probably just stay in the kitchen the whole time.
Yeah, and
you'd be like, what the fuck?
The one thing I don't do is female voices. I can't do female voices. They all come out the exact same, and it's just like 2 octaves pitched up, and that's it. I can't do any.
To the store.
I can't. Yeah, it sounds like the Monty Python old woman voices. If you ever watch Monty Python's Flying Circus, that's what it sounds like.
Voting for you.
It's like that's not helpful. So I don't generally do those. But like I generally just stay kind of middle on that. I also haven't. Up until like the last couple of campaigns, I really haven't started fleshing out my NPCs. They more served as guideposts than actual characters. So like that's a not necessarily newer thing for me, but it is newer than how I've used them before because I don't know. I feel like adding depth to the NPCs is something that I picked up on from, watching anyone play D&D professionally, and it's again, shit.
It's not always pertinent to a story to have like, all right, every person you meet has an in-depth, terrible. Because every person is a person, but every time you go to the bank, you don't ask the teller their life story.
Yeah, and I think that when I populate a town or village or setting, I come up with, depending on the size of it, like 5 to 10 important NPCs that they will run into eventually that need to have some type of agenda, objective, background, something that they will flesh them out. And then I kind of just fill it with, nameless NPCs that if they ask, I'll come up with something on the spot, and it probably won't be the best. But if they want to know about John Smith, the barber, maybe his cat died out in the fields because it got caught in a rainstorm and they need to go find the bones because someone stole the cat bones to follow up with some goblin ritual. I don't know. So you know, you
That's
can
still more depth
you can
than a
come
lot
up
of people
you
have
can
done.
come up with stuff on the spot. It helps. I think just because I fresh off of what's today, Tuesday we did D&D, and I had a sort of big boss fight because they had killed a boss, and
Yeah, you were
then
talking about the Mind
big
Flayer
boss
guy.
came up. And I switched it from Mind Flayer to an Eldritch Lich at like the last second. And it still played off very well, and it had very
Remember that,
similar
'cause the
properties.
Bottle, they had the bottle. He
Yeah.
broke the bottle spirit or the soul
Yeah.
went back into the guy.
And I think that it was interesting because I just on the spot was like, okay, we're gonna do this instead because this seems more interesting and it's got a little bit more flavor. And I on the spot came up with a voice for him and
Do you wanna
gave
give
him
that
a few
voice
more.
for us?
No, it was like psycho killer voice. Like he was insane. And then I kind of came up with a way to kill him that wasn't necessarily PC with D&D. Like it wasn't correct necessarily how you kill a lich, but it worked out, and I don't think they necessarily cared too much.
Killed it. They killed the big bad.
Yeah, for this realm, but they had a little bit of help, and they also they caught a little bit of a sickness, but we'll see how it pans out.
It's after they had to murder a man and his child on a train.
Yeah,
They're having a good time.
They're having a great
murder
time.
hoboing their way through everything.
Yeah, and I think like they got back to the train. They're like, we want to go home, and so one of them was like, I'm gonna put my he has like he's a druid, so he has like a ceremonial branch from his tree that he lived next to. It's like, I'm gonna put that in the train's furnace because they've put things in the furnace to take them places. Like, I'm gonna put that in the furnace and it'll take us home. And I was like, you can put it in the furnace if you'd like, but I don't think it's gonna take you home.
I mean, good for them for
Because
the thought.
the rules of the
Because-
campaign are you can't go home, but you don't necessarily know that. So like he didn't ask or anything. He just said, I'm gonna put this in there and it's gonna take us home. And I was like,
It's
or
going to take you to a place that could
maybe
look like home.
it's gonna take you to a twisted version of your home that you don't recognize anymore.
It's just succubi layer everywhere.
No, not doing that.
But all men.
Oof, oof. Yeah, that would be rough. But so back to the original question. I think mystery is the most difficult genre because it requires more depth and thought, both on my part and the player's part, because I can't just throw enemies at them and come up with some bullshit fetch quest plot. I have to actually have like, okay, this is the big
Steve's been
mystery.
poisoned. Help Steve find
Yeah, exactly. There's this big mystery. This is the truth at the center of the mystery they have to find. These are all the questions circling around and around. Oh, it's focused on my finger. All these questions circling around and around the truth, and they have to ask these questions. They have to figure out the answers to these questions and to slowly chip away until they get to the truth. And the truth has to be something that's worth it. It can't be, well, the gods are dead. Okay, well, so what? That doesn't really
By the
affect
way,
anyone.
Cthulhu.
Yeah, that doesn't really affect anyone. Who the fuck cares?
And
But
that's
maybe the gods are dead
difficult
because a demigod killed them, and he's trying to ascend to godhood, and they have to figure out how to stop that, because when he ascends to godhood, the entire balance of the realms will shift to completely envelop him in power, and he'll be able to do whatever the fuck he wants, and that's not good because he's evil or something. I don't know.
He's an asshole. Yeah, that's also, I can imagine that'd just be a giant pain in the ass anyway, because you basically have to like leash guide people who are helping weave a narrative to the direction you want. Like, I feel like mystery has the least amount of wiggle room in terms of a cohesive story.
I
Because
sort
the
of...
more offshoot they get, the harder it would be to try to tie the main plot back into. Like,
Yeah.
I just need you to pick up this one rock, but you won't look at the rock. Like, how do I?
Well, like, I think that you can't tie it to objective things. You have to tie it to subjective things. So, like for right now, I've sort of got a little bit of a mystery going on. And what I've done is I've written out, like, 20 truths about the area that they're in. And throughout time, as they investigate a little bit more and they learn a little bit more, they'll learn these truths. But it doesn't require them to kill a specific person or to investigate a specific spot. It requires them to do something smart and to figure something out, which they can do it really any time that they'd like to, and it's less shoehorning it in. It's less forcing them into a very specific narrative that I want them to do.
If they don't do it, though,
Well, there's nothing for them to do.
spoon feed it, or is
Oh,
it gonna,
no.
is it going to
Uh-uh.
keep them from finishing the campaign?
No, it will create a bad place for them to be in the campaign if they don't learn certain things, and that's just how it is. But I'm not gonna, because I'm not running a pure mystery.
You mean the
I'm
whole
not gonna
bottle situation?
Yeah, like they didn't investigate, they didn't really do anything. And I was like, okay, well, you're gonna fight another boss after you just fought one.
You chose poorly.
And someone almost died, and that was fine. But it is what it is. And they got through it, and I think that that's important, is to always assume that the players will take the path of least resistance, at least starting out, because this is their first. We did like the starter campaign I did with them, and that was like a level 5, like 1 through 5 adventure, and then that was kind of it. So this is their first full campaign, so I'm not trying to fault them. They also have like preconceived notions of what they should be doing because they watch like Critical Role, or they have like a D&D group there that like broadcasts on their local radio, and it's very dry and very boring from what I've heard of it.
Well, I mean, good for them for doing that.
Yeah, but because of that, and because that's their only experience, they're expecting heavily for the game to play out like that. Like when I first started DMing, I wanted to DM like the Adventure Zone, like because that was the first thing I'd ever listened to as far as podcasts for Dungeons and Dragons, and I wanted to DM like Griffin, and I was like, I'm gonna have this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna make sure this happens, and then I was like, I'm basically just making a shitty copy of this entire thing that's already happened. What the fuck am I doing? And I'm also not good at it. Like I'm not good at it to a point where I could pull this off. So it was like I had a realization, like in my second campaign, I was like, I can't just fucking try to do the exact same thing as someone else. And that means that I have to branch out. I have to try new genres. I have to try new lore. I have to try new worlds. I have to try new settings. And that ties into the most difficult campaigns, which, in my opinion, are mysteries, just because it's difficult. It's difficult to maintain concentration long enough in your group to get them to figure shit out. I don't mind sprinkling mysteries in here and there, and I don't mind making them work for things, because they do need to work for things sometimes. And there are times, like literally the other day, where I just stood and stared at them. I was like, you are doing nothing, and I have nothing to give you because you are doing nothing. I cannot. It's like when you're in Minecraft. If you stop moving, the world stops loading, and you've stopped moving, so I can't. You're literally just standing in a circle staring at each other.
Some dude's out in a field with a stick, and he's like, corn won't grow. Well, you haven't planted any. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that brings up the question of all time is, what would you like to do? Which is like the best thing to have in your toolbox as a DM, is just, what would you like to do? What would you like to do? What would you like to do? And the answer to the question, well, what can we do, is anything. Just try it. I don't fucking care. I'll figure it out. I'm at a point where I can pretty much give you something if you do something. But it's not helpful to do that too often, because then they just kind of like get bored and it's not fun. And that's generally why most mysteries are done by people who have done it a few times, like the
experienced
campaign
groups, I guess.
Like it's more fun, I guess, in that sense. Like there's a campaign that the Adventure Zone did that was it's called Elementary, and they do, or no, Graduation. It's called Graduation, and it's set in a school. And there's not a lot of combat. Like there's more investigation, there's more mystery. There's still some combat, and it's primarily a normal action adventure setting, but there's a lot of mysteries that they're trying to suss out. There's a lot of stuff, but this was like their third or fourth arc, and they'd already been through a lot, so they all knew how to do things. They all knew the rules of the road of, okay, I know what I need to do. It's kind of like when you play the same video game over and over again, and you kind of get the layout. Like everyone knows at this point, when you go through Skyrim, okay, stop at the 3 stones, get the thing, go to Bleak Falls Barrow. It's rote, but you have to do that at first. And I think that once you played a few campaigns and you get more into it, and once you've run a few more campaigns, it becomes easy to suss out what exactly you can do in the world that won't break the DM's brain, or that won't create an extreme level of boredom that everyone hates.
Like the invisible leads, like knowing that,
yeah,
like looking at the ground and being like, well, I've seen that more people have walked this path than this path, so like obviously the right answer is to.
And I think that
even if it's no sign, it's
and I think that mystery lends itself not the best to D&D, because they don't necessarily like the best system I think for investigation is Monster of the Week, where it's basically a Monster of the Week. The Supernatural, Sabrina, all these other shows where like every episode there's something they have to capture, kill, figure out, and it's
the Scooby-Doo of campaigns.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that. It's a whole series called Monster of the Week. It's based on the Apocalypse dice thing, so you just roll d6s. That's all you need, and you have successes, failures, and then like mixed success, mixed failure, and you have like your character sheet is all you need. It's just a single sheet that's got all your level up guides, all your abilities, all your other shit, and it's fun because like you have to. It's like Scooby-Doo. You can't just go in and kill the big dragon thing. You have to figure out what its motivation is. You have to investigate its weakness. You have to set a trap. All this other shit. So but it's not combat heavy. Like when you listen to people play it or when you watch people play it, it's very much role playing. It's very much, all right, I'm going to go down to the general store and I'm going to ask Jeb. He's there. I'm going to ask him if he has any rope. And I'm going to ask him with a wink if he's got any special rope because he's supplied us with special monster hunting kit in the past. And I really want him to give me this. Okay, we'll roll to see if you can persuade him. Okay, I rolled a mixed success. Okay, well, he's gonna give you the rope and he's going to give you the silver to line the rope, but he can't join them together himself because it's above his pay grade. And it's more like that. It's less combat heavy. There is combat and there's like fighting and stuff, but it's more like if you have combat, you better make fucking sure that you know the monster's weakness, that you have a lot of weapons, and you know that you might die. Like you might die, like legitimately. There's no great healing spells that can just bring you back from death. There's no healing. You literally have to rest, like in a bed for a week.
I don't know why I immediately thought of my character Flash. Betrayal. Like,
yeah.
You will die. Yeah.
You will die. Yeah, I died. Okay, yeah. I died a lot.
I got a gun. You can't shoot the gun at the monster. Damn it!
But, like, you can still do shit in it. And it's not to say that it's a weak player game. Like, you still get powers and you still get abilities and you still get fun things to do. But it's a really good series. Like, there's only 2 books. But they release, like, more stuff online. Like, they've got a pretty big player base online. And they've got 2 books. There's Monster of the Week, and then its follow-up is Tome of Shadows, which increases the amount of classes you can play as. But it's modern. So, like, I mean, you can play it like in old times, but it's like all the classes are modern classes. Like, okay, you've got the Spook, which is like the Spook is like Agent Mulder from the X-Files. You've got the Psychic. You've got the Spellcaster. You've got the Crook or the Crooked.
Esper, one of them or something?
No. You've got the Crooked. You've got the Unnatural. They're all called the something. It's like a title. And you get a playbook, which is a sheet that details what your stats are, what your abilities are, what your upgrades are, and what your kit is. So, like, as you level up, you just select different things on there, and it's very easy. It's very simple, and they're all very well balanced. So, like, you might be playing a trickster demon attached to someone's soul, and someone else might just be playing some common thief, but you all get special abilities that lend themselves. Like maybe the thief has a lot of contacts in town, so he can get special stuff. Maybe he's got like a silver tongue and he can convince anyone of anything, or maybe he's just got a fucking shotgun and a car. Like there's a series called Amnesty where they did Monster of the Week, and literally the Crooked that this guy was playing, his biggest thing was he had a car. No one else had a car. And it was something that no one really thought was a big deal, but then later on it comes in super handy because he runs down Bigfoot with his car, he hits like an invisible wolf with his car, like he just like it was this common thing that you wouldn't think would be super crazy, but everyone was like super happy that he picked up this like '97 Lincoln car from the beginning, and he took he took less of other things to get this car. And it was pretty funny that it worked out like that. But it's very well balanced.
This guy's like, all right, we've got the guns, we got the armor. Now what? Now we gotta walk 17 miles to get there.
Exactly.
The guy who has nothing has a car.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's go with that guy. He's cool. And it's a fun like what do we call it? It's a fun system. It's a gaming system, and they've got like it's very simple to learn too. You don't have to have like 27,000 dice. There's not a whole shit ton of spells to learn. It's literally there's 4 or 5, maybe it's 6 actions you can take. There's kick some ass, learn something, persuade someone, and a couple others. And it's literally like if you wouldn't normally be able to do it, roll. Like if it's gonna be a question of if you could or could not do it, roll to see if you do it. Everything else is just you can do it, like it's normal. And then everyone has different modifiers they add to it. But it's a really good, like, I got a little bit off topic, but it for mystery at least and investigation. That's like one of the better systems that I've seen, and I enjoy it because it's different, but it's still familiar because it's still otherworldly. You got a bit of fantasy. There's another one that I think I supported it on BackerKit. It's called Urban Shadows. And it's the same system, the Apocalypse system. So you've got D6s and you've got like a playbook, but it's all like werewolves, vampires, ghosts, ghasts, ghouls, zombies in modern day. Like how does society operate with that? And they've got like all these different things. It's really cool, but it's just different, and it's more about like politics, like the different warring factions in the world. How do they operate with each other? So there might be mystery, there might be intrigue, but there also might be, a gunfight in the streets, or maybe there's a secret cult casting spells that you have to stop. So it's stuff like that off the beaten path that I've started really getting into, because I mean D&D is great and they're still putting out a shit ton of books for 5th edition, but it's always good to try something new and try something different. And I think that once you get to, I think D&D is a perfect place to start, because it relies a lot more on learning rules, which is helpful for future things. And I wouldn't want to start TTRPGs by Monster of the Week, or especially Urban Shadows, because they rely a lot on role playing, and you don't learn role playing right off the bat. You get comfortable with it, you slide into it, you figure it out eventually, usually in Dungeons and Dragons, because no one comes to it acting. Like no one comes to it with a character voice and a fully fleshed out story and a backstory and future goals and ambitions and a past that's completely figured out and a great role playing attitude. No, they come to it going, I'm nervous, I don't want to use a character voice, that's nerdy, I don't want to say things, I just want to play the game. Yeah. So it's someone mentioned me in a work text.
Oh noes. Also, I'm just not to be the downer. It's like 51 minutes into the podcast, and we still haven't covered your topic.
I know, and that's totally fine.
I've already decided since I yawned that I'm probably not streaming after this, so we can go as long as you feel like.
That's cool. So the topic I wanted to talk about was, drum roll, please. Okay, that's great. And HeroScape is back. And I don't know if a lot of people know what that is. Yes, the game. So HeroScape was the hexagonal tile tabletop kind of role-playing game, more of a strategy game that came out in 2004.
Other games were based off of it that equally got slightly popular there. I remember that they did. HeroScape had, in Walmart of all places, sold a lot of it. They had like figurine sets, so it'd be like World War II, and you could get a HeroScape collection of World War II people, and then it'd be like barbarians, and it'd be like just a bunch of Neanderthal guys.
So Polygon broke the story today, I think. Actually, I saw it on my Google feed at Gen Con. Avalon Hill, which produces Betrayal and is owned by Wizards of the Coast, is bringing it back and creating a new starter kit for it. They've shown a few pieces. They've shown the terrain coming back out. And I am excited because I was literally just talking to Denny about this when he was here. Because I picked up the starter set at a thrift store years ago after it was out of circulation. And it was completely full, like it wasn't missing any pieces, and now it's selling for like $300 on Amazon, which is crazy to me. But like slowly I started like collecting more and more figurines, and so I've got like a big collection. But of course it's not in production anymore. You can still like find stuff on Amazon and other shit, but it was a game that first got me into Dungeons and Dragons because they have all of the crossovers. They've got like they did a crossover with Marvel. They did a crossover with D&D, where they have like Eberron characters and Forgotten Realms characters. They've got like aliens and robots and World War II veterans and samurai, and it was just this huge game.
Like it was like a giant rift portal had opened up, and now you have all these factions that were.
The theme was that like you play as a general in this war for the realms, and you recruit people from these different factions to work for you, and every game has a scenario and an objective, and you build out the tiles, or you create your own, I guess, and you have these people and they go and they fight, and there's an easy version and a hard version, and the hard version is more fun because like your character sheets have two different sides. One is easy, one is complicated, but the complicated side has like spells and abilities and like all this other bullshit, but the system itself was super easy because you just roll attack and defense, and then certain spells would give you more, certain spells would debuff you, you could cast fireball, whatever, and it was the first thing I ever played that was not a normal board game like Monopoly, because I got it when I was like 11 or 12, and it was like the only thing I think that sparked that interest in D&D, because I didn't know what it was. I was like, okay, this guy is called I can't even remember his name, but they had like a Warforged figurine, they had a Dragonborn, and they had a dwarf, and it was from the Forgotten Realms expansion and the Eberron expansion. I was like, well, what's Forgotten Realms? What's Eberron? So I was like looking into it, I was like, oh, it's part of the whole thing, D&D and all this other shit. And I was like, oh, damn, this is pretty cool. And I like started to get into it and stuff. And it was annoying because I got into HeroScape in, what was I, probably 12. So it was like, I don't know, close to 2010, like maybe 2007, 2008. And at that point, they'd stopped production. So I was like, shit, okay. So I had to buy price gouged sets on Amazon to get more, and like you
Super
couldn't, yeah,
edition unopened.
exactly. And I was like, well, this is fucking annoying. But so then I saw that today, I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking cool because they're bringing it back, and it was a pretty popular game. Like it sold very well. It spawned a lot of other like influenced games from it, and it opened the door for a lot of people because it was nerdy enough to get the nerds, but it was not complicated enough to scare off potential new people and potential kids, because that was always the thing with D&D is like it's difficult to play it if you're 12 because it's a lot to understand. Same with like Risk or any of these other complicated board games. It's hard to understand when you're younger. Weird
because I was super into Risk as a kid.
Yeah, and like none of my family ever played complicated board games, so whenever I would want one, I would have to learn it, and no one would play it with me except like maybe on my birthday. So I got Risk because I was really interested in it. I had to figure out all the rules. This is before I could just look up a YouTube tutorial. And then none of my family ever wanted to play it. I played it once with them, and the game went on like for 2.5 hours. Like, this is too long, and we never played it again. And I was like, okay, well, cool. But they would play HeroScape with me because the rounds were short enough. The game was quick enough, and they understood like the scenarios and shit like that. And it was just cool to me to see it coming back, and I got really excited. So that was what I wanted to talk about. They're doing a new starter pack. They haven't announced the date yet, but I'm assuming it's backwards compatible because the tiles are still the same and the character bases are still the same. But I've literally got a big tote in my closet right now full of all the terrain tiles and characters that I've collected. And it was cool because the miniatures all come pre-painted, so when I got into D&D, I just started using those miniatures because I had 40 of them of different, I've got a halfling archer. Okay, well I can use that, and it's already painted. I don't have to fucking worry about it. And it was cool to me to see that coming back.
I don't know why I thought immediately off the bat that HeroScape was an MMO.
Yeah, no, I don't give a shit about MMOs, Murph. I'm sorry. I know you like ESO,
it's like Everwinter and like RuneScape. I don't know why I thought it was just like an old MMO.
Oh yeah, I think you just combined EverQuest and Neverwinter together and said Everwinter.
Oh, there you go.
But those are two different. EverQuest is really not a thing anymore. Neverwinter's the D&D
longest
MMO.
Running.
Yeah,
I think one of them's the longest
EverQuest.
running MMO of all time.
EverQuest was one of the original. It inspired WoW, which is saying something because WoW's been around for way too long.
Since neck beards could grow beards.
Yeah, basically. So that was a piece of current gaming events that occurred that I was excited about.
That is cool. I mean, again, I remember seeing it. I don't know. I've talked about him, I think, last time too. Big John, the other John I know.
Yes.
He had a couple of boards of that. He was probably my first experience into tabletop games that weren't Battleship and Monopoly. That
because that's what always irks me, but I'm always sad because I play board games and people are like, oh yeah, we love board games, we play Monopoly all the time. I'm like, oh god, I'm so sorry.
I feel like there should be a differentiation between it because that's saying like every game is video game.
Yeah,
that is true, but so there should be like tabletop games and board games.
But technically,
and board games would be.
But technically, games like Heroescape are board games because there's a board. Like
Right.
Gloomhaven,
But
there's a
that-
board, but it's
but-
not a traditional board game. Like you're not going to spend 4 hours playing. Well, you shouldn't spend 4 hours playing Monopoly. That's
Well, you shouldn't do a lot of things, but here we are.
True.
Once again, doing things we shouldn't.
Yeah. But yes,
That's cool though. I mean, to see that that's coming back. I hope they come up with some interesting expansions.
yeah. I mean, like the images they showed, they've already got like a pretty varied starting group. Like there was like a big ogre with a hammer. There was a big like alien cyborg thing that was pretty cool. They had like a couple of dwarves, I believe. It looks interesting. I saw that, I was like, fuck, this is so cool. I'm gonna completely spend way too much money on this.
He's like, I'm gonna. Nut.
I gotta save up. I gotta save up for this because it's. I doubt it'll be out anytime soon because they announced it at Gen Con, so it's probably got a little bit more production
I mean,
going
hey,
on.
we know each other long enough. Birthday or Christmas gift or something.
Well, Murph, that brings me to the next topic. We can't talk anymore. This is too much
Okay. This
interaction.
is
I'm
fifth and
sorry.
Final episode.
Yes, we're
Feel like I
cutting
have
it
to deal with
now.
People all day.
We have to be so exclusive that we don't do it anymore, and that's like going to drive up numbers. Did you hear this podcast? You can only see it on Twitch and like maybe on
And
YouTube.
it's not even real
and
anymore.
it doesn't even exist anymore. There's only 5 episodes, and there's a
And one
secret.
of them's missing.
So one of them's missing, and if you play them backwards, there's a secret message. But there's only 5, and you got to go watch it. We'll get millions of views,
Says,
Murph.
Get wrecked, nerd.
Yeah, it's just- We'll have to put that in one of them.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so that was pretty interesting for me. I enjoyed that. And it's not necessarily D&D, but it was, sort of
Well, it's we cover
true.
club games and stuff. So I mean, it's D&D is the one that's probably the most popular. But
That's the one everyone knows because of quarantine and Stranger Things
Oh, yeah.
and the movie that's coming out.
that we'll have to go watch, and then we're
I
gonna
was-
talk about.
I was over at my parents' house, and my sister just watched all the seasons of Stranger Things in a row, and she's like, "So, like, what they do is that like D&D? Is that what you do?" And I was like, "Yes, that is what I do. Not really that because they don't really follow a lot of the same rules because it's an older edition, and also." It's very basic, and they don't spend a lot of time in the movies discussing it. But I was like, yes, if you need an analog, that is what I do. And she's like, well, do y'all like dress up? I was like, no, I don't dress up in a cape and a wizard's hat. I don't have like a thing. I just sit at my
Not a
desk
basement,
and I talk at people
blaring
on my
Led
computer.
Zeppelin and drinking Mountain Dew.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I also don't have the professional quality that Eddie has in the 4th season because that shit made me jealous. I was like, damn, they got like a whole long table. They got all this shit. It was pretty cool.
All of that can be yours if you just had a bigger space.
I mean, if I had like a bigger space and I had like a big group of people to play with, and if I had time to dedicate to playing, because that was like Troy was like, I want to play D&D. I was like, okay, and I was like trying to find people, and then I was like, hold on, I gotta have time to do this, and I also
You're
have
already
time
running
to.
a podcast.
I have
another
to-
D&D campaign.
I have to
You
have
work
time to
5
write a
nights week.
story. I have to like put effort. Like I can't just. If someone else was DMing, I'd be like, shit,
Yeah,
yeah,
you'll play.
let's do this. I don't have to worry.
It's funny you say that because so obviously I started this new job and I was at training, so you start talking to people because you have to relate to someone there.
Yeah.
And there were 2 people I talked to that were like, "So do you play D&D?" And I was like,
What gave it away?
"Please continue talking." And they were like, "Yeah." So one guy's and I'm not going to say their names because I don't know what the rules of that is. Also, I just realized you're wearing the Baltimore T-shirt too. Good for you.
But yeah, I went all branded today.
Full,
I was like,
full Balti.
this is the full expansion.
But he was like, "Yeah, so I'm a Freemason, and we spent last month finishing a campaign at the lodge." He's like, "All of us Masons got together and played," and he was like, "Yeah, we played the Devil's Game in the Devil's Hut," and I was like, "What the fuck?" He's cool though. He's so funny to talk to.
I'm sure he is, but you know they're Satan worshippers, Murph. You know that they've got
The
secret
Freeman, I would
cults.
believe that just as much about.
Have
any
you not
organization
seen
that
National
you're not allowed
Treasure?
to see.
They are keeping secrets from the American public that need to be public, like
So
National
are the-
Treasure,
So is the president who has a book of things.
the Book of Secrets, Murph, Book of Secrets.
Book of Lies.
No, like there's the Freemasons are funny. They're so toned down from what they were historically. Like I don't know. Like
That can be said
they've
about
got
a lot of things.
They've got a website. Like you can like contact people to
You
get
know
into
that they exist now, and
Yeah.
they wear decals on their car.
Yeah, it's become a thing.
The
I
idea
guess
was that no one was supposed to know that you were.
it's also like I don't know. I feel like if I want to be in a group of people that does weird nonsensical things,
be
it's
a
not.
Shriner.
It's not going to be with people who meet at a really dilapidated brick building in the middle of the day and talk about like how they can fix their communities. Like, sorry, I don't.
Like,
this-
but that's the thing is like nobody, unless you've been in the meetings. I have no idea what they do to this day. Like, genuinely, like I know what they're based off of, and I know what like they're anything that the information that they have out there online obviously is the general knowledge and what people say.
and it's all really generic ass shit. Like when you read the stuff on their website, it's like it's
like,
so
We
vague.
serve
Our community. We help people when they need help.
And
It's
they do.
only
They
for,
do. They donate. They
Yeah.
have such a large backlog of like.
There's like certain
members.
requirements. Like there's certain
You
like
have to be
things.
invited. You have to go through an
You
initiation.
have to be a man.
like-
You can't be a woman. There's no
Yeah,
women.
once you're a Mason, you're always a Mason. So
Yeah,
if you
which is
fuck
like-
up real bad. They have to punish you in a weird way.
And it makes it seem like it's like once you're a Mason, you're always a Mason. So like, there's definitely some type of soul deal going on. Like I don't know who you sold your soul to.
But but we put this giant mental image of like this creepy shadow secret society.
Yeah,
of people,
that's what they are.
But then you get there and it's like 7 fat dudes. Named
It's like
Dale.
it's 70-year-old white fat dudes
And
named
their kids
Dale.
haven't fit in a long time and need
Yeah.
the hood, so it's just kind of on them, and then it separates around their stomach.
It's
And there's like some Krispy Kreme donuts, maybe, and a little coffee maker.
it just feels like Sunday school, and it's like, guys, they have
Don't
this
talk
already.
about anything in
They
particular.
have
They,
this
like,
already. Just go to church.
They've got 7 DVDs recording the history of D-Day.
Yeah.
They've got 1 DVD that was probably brought from their son's room because it was an interesting movie they watched once. And then they've got the you have to watch this once a month brainwashing video.
But
and
maybe
that's the entirety
maybe
of the
that's their
Freemason.
goal, Murph. Maybe they want to come off as unassuming and like toned down, and secretly like that's just the
there's,
front.
like, there's
That's just the front.
Freemasons, and then there's like the upper echelon of Freemasons that most of them have never seen.
Exactly. It's a secret
So people
society,
are like-
Murph.
They're like, we have to infiltrate this group, and then you get there, and it's the 7 dudes named Dale. And
Yeah.
they're like, this is lame, and then they're like, "Ma, they never knew the actual organization."
That's
You gotta-
exactly what
You gotta
it is.
pull the nipple of the statue, and then it does secret
Yeah.
elevator.
That's exactly
That's
what
why
it
it's all
is.
shit ass concrete buildings. It's because it's actually built on top of a giant bunker.
100%. I think that's exactly what the Freemasons do, and I think
You're
that
gonna find out that
they're gonna put a hit out on us now because we said them.
Freemasons is just an excuse for a bunch of guys to get together and whittle.
They got
like,
their
My
secret
Little Pony figures
handshakes.
out of-
They've got their little decals that I don't understand anything
Like, bro,
about.
I hope everything is so low key. They're like the secret handshake, and you're like, okay, what is it? And
It's
they
just a
fucking
normal
shake
handshake.
your hand.
It's just this normal handshake. It's like okay. It's
They
like
do that
did
thing
you?
where they fold a finger in.
Yeah,
the
it's like
palm.
did
You're
you
like,
just
"Ah."
stroke my palm? Ugh.
No, that's the handshake.
Oh, I quit. I
I
can't
don't
do
like
this.
this. No,
I gotta
I'm
go away.
You grab their hand, you like lick it, and you're like, oh, what the fuck?
not a
Brothers
fan.
can't get sick. It's like, I don't like this.
Jesus Christ.
But then on the other hand, the Shriners, which are super public, you go to there, you have to like sacrifice a goat every meeting, and
Yeah,
it's like
and then
6
they wear
cancer-ridden
fezzes.
Children have to show up.
they wear a fez, which is interesting to me. It's very awkward.
how to pretend you still have some sort of like Middle Eastern cultural connection. Number 1, put on fez. Number 2, drive a miniature go-kart in a parade.
It's not a good thing. I think if Martha Stewart was talking about it, she would not call it a good thing, like she does for most things that are good.
Well, I mean,
But I think
feel
any
the same way
group
about
of
them as I do
people.
about like the Lions Club, because it's the same
I don't know what
shit.
that
It's
is.
like, how does a bunch of old white dudes get together and put on a weird vest, and then they go, "We help the community once a year by going to the fair."
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that they do, and they also provide like a community to people. But I think communities are inherently evil, so that's
No,
my
you
hot
think
take.
people are inherently evil?
No,
so
no, no, no,
therefore
no,
all
no,
things
no, no,
people
This
do.
is the thing. I mean, it's a popular Men in Black quote, but I believe it. A person is great. Like the person, the individual is great. You get to know them, you humanize them. It's great. People are stupid, ignorant assholes. You get any type
I
of
remember
group. That's not the exact quote, but he's like,
No, it's Men in Black 1 though. I know. What
yeah,
you're talking about.
he's like sitting on
He's
the
like, we
bench or
could
something.
handle it. He's like, you could handle it.
Yeah.
We could not.
Yeah, and he talks about like going public and stuff. He's like, a person is smart. But when you get a group of them, they go crazy. And I think that that's true of really anything. Is
because you start losing, like, collectively, the more people together there are, the less brain cells are allowed to be active at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that in general, humans aren't the smartest when it comes to handling any type of situation.
Anything.
Yeah, so I don't think it's helpful to get
That's
a
why
bunch
they're
of
like,
us in
how
a room
come
together.
aliens haven't contacted us if they exist? I was like,
They don't want to talk to us. We're
Would
like
you
the
contact if your
we're
neighbor
like the
was
house-
blowing shit up and like shitting in the yard every day.
we're like the
would you
house.
be like, well, hello, it's nice to.
We're like the house at the end of the cul-de-sac that's like got the windows boarded up. There's
Go
like
play
there's
with
like
the neighbor's
six
kid and we're the neighbor's kid.
there's like 6 trailers parked on the front lawn, and no, like everyone always says, don't go to the house at the end of the street. You don't want to go there. You don't.
Is it because they're weird? No, they're fucking.
It just smells weird. It smells so weird,
I'm
and
pretty
no
sure
one
it's
knows
meth.
why. We don't see anyone coming in or going out, but like occasionally there'll be mail on the doorstep, and the next day it won't be there. So it's like, what the fuck? Someone's there, but we
Sound
don't
like
know
you're
who.
describing that house from like the fucking who killed or To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, that's basically it.
the one next door that they're like, yeah, I think somebody's in there, but I ain't fucking around and finding out. Yeah,
Well-
Billy went over there and he got hepatitis. What? How does those two things correlate?
Well, this has been fun. I think I'm done. I think I'm all talked out
Alright, so
in
moral
terms
of the
of
story is new tabletop games coming back out.
HeroScape coming to a distributor near you at some point. I don't know. I didn't get a lot of information
Well, here's a
from the
question
article.
for you to kind of ponder on, and I'm not necessarily going to make it the next episode question, but is there like an IP out there that you think would make a good tabletop game that like hasn't been explored yet? And I don't mean like a bullshit one like Lord of the Rings Monopoly or something like an IP that like would have a good and true fun tabletop even if it borrowed from other concepts of games.
I think for the most that's the sign. I think for the most part they have them. Like I think Warhammer's got one, Skyrim's got one, Cyberpunk has one, Dragon
It was a
Age
game
has
first,
one.
which is crazy.
Yeah. So I think that most of them have them. I would have to think long and hard on a type of game.
Do the Chronicles of Narnia have a
No, because they're inherently shit. So I don't think they have.
You just angered a lot of people.
Tabletop. Well, the 3 viewers we have, all of whom are avid Chronicles of Narnia fans.
all of which are in the podcast.
I don't like him. I don't. They're
Books or the movies? I mean, or both.
either that they're heavy-handed religious metaphors.
Well, I mean, yeah,
and it's like,
they were written
bro.
at the same time Tolkien was writing Lord of the Rings. 'Cause
Yes.
obviously the two authors knew each other.
And there's
which
a
is
reason
fine.
one succeeded spectacularly more than the other, and that is because it's just better. Like, like his books, they're not bad. Like I've read all of them. I think I read all of them like 3 times when I was a kid because like I didn't have a lot of books to read. So I liked them okay, and then I started reading like other stuff, and I was like, okay, well this is better. There's jumps, there's weird settings.
There's a lot of like subject matter change because
Yeah.
the difference between Lord of the Rings is like it has undertones of stuff, but
Yeah.
its forefront is the narrative itself.
And I think that when like not even comparing the two, C.S. Lewis created a model like a model of his world, and I think that it's not the best. I honestly like his system for how things work in his fantasy setting don't necessarily make a lot of sense. And he relied heavily on religious iconography, which Tolkien has it in there, but it doesn't rely on the plot. Like C.S. Lewis, like especially in his final book, his whole thing is going into the garden and getting the thing that the witch has, and the witch is Satan, and the garden is the Garden of Eden, and the thing that Diggory's trying to get is the apple from the Bible. Like it's very heavily influenced. Like it's just a reskinned creation story, and I get it. It's cool. Like it seems very similar, and it's got like the way they travel worlds is these different pools that they go into, and they take you to different places, and that's how they bring the witch to Narnia, and it's all pretty interesting. But once if you took out all the religious iconography, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. It wouldn't be
It also
a coherent
implies
story.
that you know what any of
Yeah,
that is.
and
So-
I feel like any book that relies heavily on something else to tell its story, it's just an analogy at that point. It's not really a story.
but
It's an analogy.
And that's what I think C.S. Lewis's biggest problem was with those stories, because I'm not even the biggest Narnia fan. I just knew that it's a massive IP.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it always felt heavy-handed in the sense that they are trying to teach me a lesson.
Yeah, and I think
Tolkien wasn't trying to do anything other than tell me an entertaining tale.
yeah,
And it's like, do I need you to reprint the Bible for me where God is a lion?
yeah. God is a lion. Satan is the
Don't get me wrong.
witch.
First movie, super cool.
Yeah, I liked them. I liked the movies.
But meh.
They
Like,
were
the
decent.
whole, like, the first book was probably still my favorite of all of them. Other than, I think the one where they go back with Prince Caspian was
Yeah.
probably a better book, because it's interesting to see them leave Narnia, grow up, and then come back, and it's like, oh, last time I saw you, you were 7, and now you're 15.
Yeah, so I think that like it's not a bad series. And like I said, I've read
It's
them all.
got
I
its
think
moments.
I remember
feel
most
like
of them.
That series would do wonders by having another author who is more fantasy than religious context summarize it into one big book.
Yeah.
If they took the story and they took all of the things that worked in it and they just condensed it down, it would be probably one of the better books that you could read.
Yeah, and
The
I
issue
think I think
is that
that
he was super long-winded over like 6 books.
he was. And I think that kind of bellies itself as a fantasy world, because you look at Tolkien, you look at the difference between the two, and Tolkien is long-winded. He goes into a lot of detail, but he spent so much, like, he created a language, he created a world, he created races, he created stories within stories within stories, and I think that he spent more work overall creating that so that it would last longer. And I think C.S. Lewis did a great job. Like, I'm not saying he was a bad writer. I'm just saying that I think there's a reason one has succeeded more than the other, and I think it's because Tolkien's is more universally not acceptable, but understood,
maybe?
accessible. Yeah, it's more accessible to a wider audience. You don't have to know a bunch of stuff to read Tolkien and go, okay, let's go. And if you do want to get super nerdy with it, you can read the Silmarillion. Like, the Silmarillion is dense with religious tones. It's dense with creation myths. It's dense in general. It's hard to read. But like, if you're into that shit, you want like the deep meat of the shit, you can get there by reading the Silmarillion. You've got the Tales of Numenor that are like a bunch of different stories that someone like compiled together. I think his son. But I think that has a much better. I don't know. It's got more longevity. I think that really the only time Chronicles of Narnia was of any interest in recent history was when they did a movie about it, and then
Put Liam Neeson as the lion.
yeah, and then they came out with, reprinted books and shit, and it was great and everything. But it wasn't. I feel like if the movies hadn't come out, we would not be talking about Chronicles of Narnia, and like no one talks about it right now. Like, people still talk about Lord of the Rings.
The only reason I know anything about Chronicles of Narnia continuing into the 2022 year is memes.
Yeah.
Like the Lion, the Witch, and the audacity of this
bitch. Yeah, and that's what it's become. And I think that
and
if
the fucking lion one.
Yeah, and I think that the only real reason, like I said, is because there's a movie, but people were talking about Lord of the Rings, and will continue to talk about Lord of the Rings until the end of time.
Well, I mean,
maybe
they
not the
say
end of time.
Tolkien is the father of modern high fantasy.
Yeah, and I think that rings
Single-handedly
true.
Molded what would become.
I would say probably him or Robert Jordan, just because Robert Jordan was so not long-winded. He just produced a massive body of work in so short a time.
So many fucking.
Yeah, and they're all good. Like I've read some of them, and they all seem to be good. They've created like that TV series now, The Wheel of Time. But even without the series, it was still a very, very popular. Like, they sell all of his books. They sell like new printed versions of his books. They sell accessories to his books. Like, it's a big thing still. And they just came out with a series that was really good. The Wheel of Time is a really good series.
I just get that one confused with Wrinkle in Time, which had Oprah in it.
Yes, that is
Chris
not
Pine.
the same. That is not the same. Rosamund Pike is in Wheel of Time, and she is a Vision in that. Very, very good actress.
Wheel of wait, that's the lady that played in Vision and Scarlet Witch, that TV series. The chick that played Agatha is in Wheel of Time as well, isn't she?
No. Mm-mm. Agatha Harkness is not in the Wheel of Time. That is not her. It is
actress, at least.
The actress is Rosamund Pike, and I will. You'd know her if you looked her up because she's familiar, but she's not the woman from.
Okay.
Vision.
I'm really bad at.
There's similar like mannerisms, I guess, but I don't believe she's in there unless like she voices someone. But the Wheel of Time is great. You should check that out. Chronicles of Narnia are decent. Like I'm not saying they're bad. I just don't like.
I feel
them
like that would be
much.
another one that, if they hadn't, well, they didn't. They never finished all the movies. But I feel like if Amazon picked it up as a TV series, it would almost do better than it would as a movie.
Yeah,
because they could kind of pick and choose and flesh out what they.
Yeah, and I think that what C.S. Lewis did was he created a world, and then he told like an excerpt of stories in that, all centered around the same characters. Like when you look at the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's Peter, Susan, Lucy, Edmund. When you look at Prince Caspian, it's Peter, Susan, Lucy, Edmund, minus one or two. When you look at the rest of the books, they all involve the same characters. Like they trade out, they come back and forth. Eventually, like the main four don't come back, but now they've got their cousin who's there. Like it's all the same characters with different stories. The only different one is the first one, where it's Diggory and his female friend, who are like the start of all of this, who bring the witch to Narnia. And the third one, where it's about fuck is his name? It's like a desert setting, and it's about this kid who comes into his own and shit. I can't remember the name of it, but the rest of them are centered heavily around the rest. So it's more character driven than it is world driven. Whereas you look at Lord of the Rings, there's a shit ton of characters. There's a shit ton of stuff going on. You don't need to rely on just Frodo the whole time. Like they zoom out, they go and look at Aragorn. They go out and they look at Pippin and Merry. They go out and they look at Bilbo. They go out and they look at Gandalf. Like it's all this other shit going on. Whereas Narnia really focuses on these central cast of characters that never change. Even when the main four don't come back because they're too old, they're still in the last book. They're still mentioned heavily. They're still related to everything happening. Or maybe like they see, like in the third one, it's only about this one guy, but he meets the four kings and queens of Narnia because they're still in there during this time period, and he meets them and they're there and they play like this important role in it. It's like, okay, whatever. So it's more character driven because the strength of his characters was what his strength was, whereas Tolkien's strength was his world building and his setting creating. He could have put anyone in that world and it would have been an interesting story. And that's why Amazon picked it up, because Amazon can detach itself from Frodo, Bilbo, Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and it can create its own characters because the world is so just dense. Like there's so much story going on. You don't need Gandalf. I mean, as much as I love him, you don't need Gandalf to tell a good Lord of the Rings story because the world's there. And that's what they're doing. They're telling that, like, they picked Saruman and the Rings of Power, so they'll probably reference Elrond and Galadriel and all these other people that we've seen or we've heard, but it's not their story. It's about the Rings of Power, which haven't really been told. Like there's subject matter and there's stories about them, and you could probably divine what the series is going to be about, but it's not like a whole movie. It's not a whole book. It's like just bits and pieces they're picking and pulling out and creating their own thing out of it. You can't do that with Narnia because the world isn't necessarily that well fleshed out. You have a few kingdoms scattered around. You have a few stories told here and there. You've got a basic system of interdimensional travel. You've got an end goal, which is everyone going with Aslan to the place beyond this. Well, I forget what their heaven is called. Or Valinor is Lord of the Rings. I can't remember what this one is. But it's very much close-ended. Like they've told everything they can tell. There's not really much to pull out of this unless you retell the same story with the four characters. And that, it is what it is. They told some good stories. They had some good times. They did some good movies. But I don't think you could make a series out of the legend of the Chronicles of Narnia, because it's not. You would just be reskinning a story already told. Like it's
right.
There's not much else to do because you don't get that view of everything. Even when things are happening in Minas Tirith, you still know that other places exist. When things are happening in the Chronicles of Narnia, it's just kind of right here within a 5-mile radius.
We didn't even know there were other areas in Narnia until they were introduced into another book.
Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, like, it
by
works.
The way, there's also
it's like the Etten Moors where the 7th book takes place, and
they Elder Scrolled the shit out of it, where it's like every expansion just adds.
Yeah. And it's not bad. It's just I don't care for it because it's kind of just, I don't know, beating a dead horse at this point.
Well, I feel better about your opinion because you have thoroughly read the series. And again, not that I have, right? I'm not saying that from my perspective, but it's just like you gave it a shot, whether it was intentional or not, and then your opinion is based off the fact that you did give it a shot.
Yeah.
And like you did read through it and you did understand and comprehend what they were trying to do. So that's appreciated, I'm sure, by a lot of people.
Yeah. And I'm also, I mean, just because of my own personal experiences, I'm always I'm always going to side against something that is super heavy religious overtones, because it's just like I'm good.
It gets
I grew up with that.
It's kind of a
I'm okay. I know the stories. I know the creation myths. I know the salvation legends. I know the resurrection. Like, I understand it. You didn't have to reskin it. The whole thing is a bit played
that's
out.
like Christianity's favorite thing to do is like
Oh yeah, I mean,
reskin things and give
yeah,
it back
and
to
it's
you
I
the
mean,
way
and I
it's-
get it, because they got to stay modern. They got to attract new people. That's how religions work. They need followers, and you get followers by appearing appealing, and you appear appealing by staying modern and having
But it's
a
hard
movie
to
made
keep
about it.
people if all the things that aren't related to you are more exciting than what
Exactly,
you're
and
supposed to do it.
I think that it's a good
Package
book
something
series.
and-
Yeah, and I think
Well,
that
but that's anything. That's any business. I mean, there's a phone comes out. Another company's like, well,
Yeah.
we want that money, so here's another phone that's the same
Yeah.
fucking.
exactly.
So
I was gonna end this like 30 minutes ago. We went on a huge tangent.
It's whatever.
You're good.
The last of the tangents here. I mean, if we're talking about things that are getting shows and series based off of stuff, the fact that Fallout now has a TV show coming out
With
from
Walter
Amazon.
Goggins, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I love Walter
which
Goggins.
is cool because like he's a good actor. I like what he does. He's typecast very heavily as a type of person, but I feel like he fits the Fallout setting just from how he looks.
When they said Walter Goggins, I immediately pictured him in a Fallout jumpsuit. Almost immediately, I was like, "This fits.
Yeah.
This fits."
But my thing is like, is he gonna be a vault dweller, or do you think that he'll be a guy that like discovers a vault dweller?
I don't know.
And then is like,
but the
working
image I
with them?
instantly had was Walter Goggins in a Vault 31 jumpsuit, or not 31.
Vault 111.
Yeah,
for those
yeah.
who give a shit.
Yeah, it was in a Vault jumpsuit with a number on it, and I was like, "Fuck, this is." I get it. Yep. Sign me up,
See, but
Scotty.
that's the thing is like I feel like Fallout could be done way easier than Elder Scrolls because Elder Scrolls is deep lore.
Yeah,
It's deep,
and I can't even
it's still
explain.
not even completely.
I can't even explain
upon.
why I agreed 100% with Walter Goggins. Like, I maybe it's just
He
like
just it feels like good casting.
It feels good.
Feels like good.
It feels
casting.
smart,
He was
and
great
that's
in
the only
Justified.
reason I could get.
He was good in American Ultra. He was good. Like he is a good actor.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see who the rest of the cast is. They've also done like hints of settings of some of the stuff, so like it looks good. I can't wait to see. Apparently they're using the Fallout 2 armor for power armor
Ooh.
with the weird pig.
Yeah.
Kind of. So it's gonna be interesting to see where they pull from. I know that they're gonna be doing stuff. Like the Capital Wasteland's gonna be featured at
That's gonna
some
be good.
point, so it'll be interesting to kind of see like the Brotherhood in that area. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's cool because like the lore is there, but there's like not so deep that you're
And
gonna
it's
have to like.
and like you said, it's a lot simpler than Elder Scrolls Online, because it pulls from what we kind of already know, like U.S. history, and there's a slight deviation.
with the whole thing
Atomic
with
power,
China, and that's pretty much the biggest
Atomic
thing is,
power was what drove us instead
like
of
51, 52, we said fuck it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy though because I think it's gonna be good. Again, I'm interested in that one, and I'm interested in the Last of Us series with Pablo Pascal.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's gonna go.
I've never played The Last of Us. I know of it, and I know of the reception it received, good and bad. But I've never played
First
it.
one was majoritarily good. Most people liked the first one. It was the second one that got real iffy, and it's actually very similar to the conversation we had at the beginning. because
Yeah.
people were like, "Oh, this is a very feminist movement game," but then, like again, Brandon, the guy that followed us earlier, is like, he loved the second one. He
Yeah.
thought it was phenomenal. The storytelling. The first one is getting remastered for the PS5.
I saw that.
and they're building it from the ground up in a new engine. You should try it. You really should. At least the first one.
Well, Troy's told me I have to play it at some point, so it's on the list.
It is definitely cool. But it's interesting to see Pablo Pascal play Joel because it's not a bad casting choice in my opinion. It's just interesting considering what some of the other options they chose over were.
Yeah. I don't know who Joel is, but I know who Pablo Pascal is, and I am excited because I like him as an actor. I don't know enough about the series, though.
I think he's fucking hilarious. He also looks a lot like a slightly Spanish Jeremy Renner.
Oh, I could see that.
It's just like there's Del Toro, something Del Toro.
Benicio del Toro?
Yeah, he looks like Hispanic Brad Pitt.
You know, when I first saw Benicio del Toro, and this is going to sound bad, I thought he was Brad Pitt, because the first time I saw Benicio del Toro was in an Avengers movie, because he plays the Collector. And I thought it was Brad Pitt, and I was like, why is Brad Pitt in an Avengers movie playing this weird off the beaten path character? And I was like, oh, that's Benicio del Toro. I was like, oh, that still doesn't make too much sense to me. Why would Benicio del Toro be playing this
Because he
off
just
the
wanted to
beaten
be in a
path?
Marvel movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Same
good for
reason,
him.
Like, why is Seth Green Howard the Duck?
Yeah, I mean it works. It was just an interesting thing, and I was like, oh, I feel bad. But he's like all in the makeup and the wig and stuff, and I was like, that's Brad Pitt.
But again, it's just like they prove it time and time again. A lot of celebrities are just reskins of other celebrities. Not take away from their talent, but people like to look at things that look familiar. Like what's her name? Margot Robbie, and there's like 3 other women who look just like her.
Now, Murph, I think
And
what
it's
you've said is
crazy.
sexist. I think you've
No,
just
not
said all
necessarily, 'cause
women
it-
look the same. I think that's
No,
exactly what
it's
you
the
just
same
said.
thing with dudes. Because look at his we just named like 2. So I mean, there's people that look like people. There's an entire list. We'll talk about it some other day when it's not on the podcast. But it's funny to see because like there's a comparison. Like you can tell why this actor was picked because he looks like this actor 20 years younger, and it's
Yeah.
like they're just filling in the gaps of actors who are on the way out, kind of stuff. So
Yes. I see that sometimes, but I don't really pay attention all that often to how similar actors look. Just as because I just don't. I'm more focused on
you
the
just
story.
watch the movie for the sake.
I just go, it's a movie.
Is that
Yay.
Jack Black? That's Jack Black.
I love Jack Black. Oh my God, it's that one person from that one thing, and I'm gonna Google it. Now I know who it is. Okay, great.
And then
cool.
I won't remember tomorrow, but I did it today.
Yeah, I did it today. That's generally how I watch movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
Especially now, I don't know half these people anymore.
yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of actors and actresses to keep up with, and it's like, oh, they're all really good. It's difficult to find a bad one these days, unless they
Which
do
is funny,
something
the ones that
problematic, and then
have
it's like, ugh.
been around for a little bit that I had no idea about. So like when Timothy Chalamet made the scene, I'm like, oh, he's new, and they're like, he's been in stuff.
No,
for
he's
like
been in a
5
lot of
years.
stuff.
I'm like,
Yeah, he's been on the radar for a while. Yeah,
Who?
yeah, he's been in a lot of things lately. That's like Donald Glover. A lot of people didn't realize that he was a singer / rapper, and
Childish
also
Gambino.
in Community when he hit
He
in
was
solo.
he was an actor, a stand-up comedian.
Yeah,
who was
stand-up
actually
comedian.
funny, and a
and a rapper.
Grammy-winning
Yeah.
performer.
It was
And it's
like, oh,
bro,
I just
he's
saw
a
him in a Star Wars
Renaissance man,
movie.
Like he did.
It's like, damn. Anyway, I think I'm gonna call it here. We're at the hour and
that's
a
fine.
half mark.
Cool.
Thank you for watching, and thank you for interacting. For those of you that did, please send your questions, your burning questions to what's in the dungeon at gmail.com.
Or that's not a cold sore at Gmail.
Oh my God. Then we have a Twitter, same name as the Twitch. Follow us, or don't. I don't care. We have a YouTube where you can see past videos, except for the first one because it's lost to time.
Yeah.
And we post. I generally get it within the next few days, just depending on how my internet is, because it's a big thing to upload, and YouTube is very finicky about big files. We have no merch. We have no sponsors. We have only the things I've listed. If you'd like to sponsor us,
though, I might actually have a sponsor for us. Like, no joke. We would obviously have to continue the podcast for a bit, but
We would.
I do think I found someone that would be willing to sponsor us, at least maybe not monetarily, but like to review products that they sell,
yeah.
kind of stuff. I'll just mention it. Tower Games is really close to us.
Oh, they're pretty awesome.
And they don't have an official podcast that they work
Ooh.
with. And
They
so
just put a new one in down the street, and I went to their opening and they had a food truck, and it was a carne asada food truck, and they had carne asada loaded hash browns or tater tots.
That sounds awesome.
It was amazing, Murph.
So
Didn't buy anything though. I just got that.
the food and walked around and then left.
I was like,
but see,
oh.
like I feel like if we had a good enough relationship with them, they might be willing to like,
Yeah.
hey,
I got a punch card from them, I
and you
believe.
can
Yeah.
review these
I just bought,
figurines that these guys made, and
I just
so on
bought
and so forth.
Root, a new TTRPG. Well, not new. It's kind of been out a little bit. But I was just up there with Denny a few weeks ago and bought some stuff. They're cool.
Denny.
They've got a few locations. I like them.
We'll have to get him on the podcast sometime. I feel like he'd be a good one to talk
Denny's
to about stuff.
great. Denny is great.
You're like, if it wasn't for Troy.
I know. Troy says I want those carne asada fries again. Yes, they were very good. But yeah, that would be cool. I think that's pretty interesting, and we talk about a lot of nerd shit anyway. They do.
I mean, they might even let us like set up there one day and like, bring a laptop and just set it down with some mics and talk or something. Just talk to the store owners about what it's like to run a business like that that's devoted to tabletop life.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. I don't know. Working at a business makes my mind always go to things, and I'm always like, man, the overhead is probably very low after startup, I'd imagine, because you're only really staffing one person, and then you have extras for events.
I wonder if you do it because you're passionate about it or because you know there's a market for it.
Probably both. I'd imagine it's both. Because like there was a point in my life where I was going to go in with my roommate and start like a game store years ago, because like he had some money from one of his family members died, and we were looking at things. He was looking at things to do with it, and it's a very niche market that you have to have a need for. But if you're passionate about it, it's good. But you have to know like what sells, and like what sells mostly is Magic cards. Like that's generally what drives people to those types of places, because Magic cards are difficult to find, but they've got a huge market, especially for the rare ones and for all the different expansions and the commander decks and all that other shit. So like we were getting into like research and stuff about it, and they were like, you want these, you want these. It's like, okay, well, and they're expensive to start off, but if you get enough of a fan base, you can eventually pay off the stuff that you need, and it's cheap staff because you really just hire someone for $15 an hour to work 11 to 8 every day of the week. You have a couple other people to rotate shifts around. It's not too difficult because you don't keep odd hours. No one's going to come to a game store at 8 in the morning, and no one's going to come to a game store at 10 o'clock at night. So generally, normal business hours apply. You could close one day of the week and it'd be totally fine just to give everyone a day off, and then you're basically. I don't have experience running a game store. This is just me. That makes sense though, because that's your background,
which is cool to think of, because like these are things that someone out there might not realize when they're like, I'm going to open like a cafe and board game store. Well, it's like, yeah,
those are cool,
but here's some things that you might need to consider. So
yeah, you got to have a food license.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Especially if you're like in a small town that doesn't really understand that market. Like, you may not even get community support, which kind of sucks.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of what drives business at these places is the event nights. There's Magic Mondays. They do like this new Tower Games has a calendar up, and every night they've got something going on. They've got Magic on Mondays. They've got D&D on a certain day. They've got BattleTech on another day. They've got Warhammer on another day. So like it drives people in who then buy products, because most of the times at games, people need space. They need a place to play D&D. They need a place to play board games.
Rental space is not just good for gaming either. That's huge for like bands renting a place to practice. Like grieving groups needing a space to talk and stuff. That's why churches rent out their spaces all the time.
It sounded like you said grieving groups, but then I realized you said reading groups.
No, I said grieving.
You said grieving?
Like the like Mothers Who Lost Sons organization, like the Mothers Against Drunk Driving and stuff like that. They'll get together and they'll have like, it's like AA meetings, but for women who are grieving and stuff like that. It's like a support different
group.
Groups like that. Yeah, support groups.
Okay.
That's the word.
I thought you meant to say reading groups. I was like, oh yeah, reading groups. And I was like, I don't know what a grieving group is.
Like having a space for rent is a huge market.
Yeah,
is
especially nowadays. But yeah, anyway,
So yeah, I'll talk to them at some point when we have something established in at least 10 episodes, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're at 4 viewers right now, Murph. We're at 4 viewers.
I want those. Yeah, I just read that. Well, hi, welcome, and sorry that we're ending. Did we typically last about 2 hours?
Yeah,
We're just
an hour to 2.
Honestly, we talk D&D, but I feel like we're like a tabletop bullshit podcast.
We're a nerd podcast. We're a nerd podcast. We talk about video games.
We're 2 dudes who want to talk about things and
random
have other
bullshit.
People awkwardly listen in.
Yeah, we spent a tangent, I think, last time talking about don't kill babies or something. Don't throw babies.
It's our most viewed part because I shared it.
Yeah, of course. Anyway,
don't put babies in the thing.
Don't put baby. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that'll be a meme one of these days. So this has been What's in the Dungeon podcast. You've been listening to Murph and John. You can figure out which is which. Next week we will be here. Hopefully, I'm going to commit to next week because I don't have anything going on at night. It depends. Murph's got a new employer.
I'm genuinely like right down the road.
Yeah.
So it's 2 weeks. Just for clarification, it's 2 weeks. Classroom training.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out every day by like 5, unless the place asks me to help like close things up.
Yeah.
And then it's 2 weeks of shadowing a mentor, and then I'm on my own. So it's a month of training total, and then just out in the water. So Wednesdays should be fine. I might even have certain Wednesdays off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Wednesdays at our normal time should be good.
Yes.
I just have to be able to get home, obviously. But I'm not driving an hour and a half.
Which is great.
7 minutes.
It's right down the road, and I live 5 minutes from 2.5 minutes from where I work, so it works out.
Very similar situations now. It's really nice.
Yeah. So give us a follow, give us a like, give us your questions, please, for the love of God. We need questions. We kind of saved ourselves today with not having too many questions. We just kind of talked about some things happening, but at some point we will need some questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, not seeing each other for like a week and a half.
That also does it, yeah. That also does it.
If this was a Fortnite podcast, we'd have tons of time in between because no one would be talking.
Also, I don't play Fortnite, so I'd have a lot of questions.
I meant
I'd be
Fortnite, like the date, not like
Fortnite,
like the game.
Oh, you meant like 14 days. You're not the game.
The actual origin of Fortnite.
Yeah. Oops. Anyway, thank you everyone, and stay frosty out there. I don't know. We need like a catchphrase at the end, and I haven't figured it out.
What's in your dungeon?
No, that sounds slightly sexual, and
like Capital One's.
Yeah, what's in your dungeon?
What is it in my wallet?
These guys, they've pirated our saying, and they're saying it in the same cadence. Can we sue them?
I feel like that'd make good merch though. Like, what's in your dungeon?
What's
and
in
it's
your
a guy
dungeon?
opening his wallet, and it's his like character.
You can't do the wallet. Can't do the wallet. No, that's iconography from a very well-established business. We'll come up with a phrase or something at some point, but for now, it's stay frosty.
Email it to us.
Yeah, stay frosty, assholes.
Oh God,
that's great. That was.
I don't like that imaging,
great.
but
Oh well. This has been What's in the Dungeon podcast. Thank you, everyone. Follow us, subscribe. I don't know what the terms are.
do the things.
Send us questions, for the love of God. And everyone, have a great rest of your night. Goodbye.
See you.